Hey, everybody, welcome to Show and Tell. So, if you haven't tuned in before, just as a little summary, this live stream is where the TBD team shows and tells you about the latest, greatest open source project or concept going on at TBD because we love to be open about what we're working on. Just as a quick note, during the show, whether you are on Twitch, LinkedIn, YouTube, Discord, you can drop questions in the chat and we will answer them in the second half of our show. Sometimes we may pick on them during. And I am your host and moderator, Tanya, Technical Community Manager here. And joining us as our guest for the day is Gabe and Will. Feel free to introduce yourselves real quick.
Go ahead, Will.
Hi, thanks, Tanya. It's great to be here. I'm Will Wilkinson. I'm the head of policy and government partnerships here at TBD.
Awesome.
Hi, nice to meet you all. I'm Gabe. I am working on open standards at TBD.
Awesome. All right. So before today's show, feel free to answer in the chat, everybody, where you're tuning in from. I see Will, you mentioned from LA. I'm from New York myself. What about you, Gabe?
I'm in Oakland, California.
Cool. All righty. So whenever you're ready, you can feel free to share your screen. Angie, New Orleans. Awesome.
All right.
I see Ebony mentioned Boston. Okay. Here we go.
So yeah, this is a presentation we gave at the California DMV Hackathon that they held at the beginning of this month. We'll run through some of the slides there to show off the work that we did. Some of it you'll already be familiar with as our audience. So the Square side of things, this is really a partnership between TBD and Square. We're all one company, but we don't often get the chance to work with one another. Luckily, this opportunity presented a good chance to cross-pollinate between our two groups. And we're highlighting here what Square does. All these numbers are public, but for the California DMV, they really care about access to Californians and the reach of this product offering globally. Nationwide. And even though Square is a global company, this is our first focus. So Square has over 36 product offerings, over 4 billion in sales the previous year, and billions of dollars in payments processed. What we're focusing on is the Square retail product, because what we have showed off is buying or gaining access to age-restricted items using privacy-preserving proofs. So on that note, over a third of Square merchants handle age-restricted items, and about 15% of all sales involve age-restricted items. So introducing a privacy-preserving solution to check your age would have a pretty big impact for the Square product. And specifically, we can't give exact numbers, but certainly millions of Californians that use Square merchants throughout the year could benefit from this privacy-preserving solution. Will, do you want to take the next couple?
Sure. So, as everybody's followed TBD knows, TBD is an open source company, and we have a, kind of bedrock commitment to open standards. We were established as an open source business unit, and we're building open protocols for financial messaging and credential exchange to help everyone access and participate in the global economy. And so followers of this stream will know a lot about our open source projects, all of our SDKs that enable digital identity and verifiable credentials. And we're very active in the decentralized identity space. We are present on committees. We're on boards of companies that are doing open standards for identity and verification, like the OpenID Foundation, the W3C, and the Decentralized Identity Foundation. So, Square sellers, and everybody's familiar with those. You all go into coffee shops, and if you work for a Block like I do, I'm always like interested in what point of sale service somebody's using. I'll be like, oh, Toast, but like I'm always happy when I see that they're using a Square terminal. And a lot of those sellers, as Gabe just said, sell age-restricted items like tobacco or alcohol. Most grocery stores, most convenience stores do, and they need a feature to prompt for a buyer to check the IDs of their customers who are coming in to buy age-restricted products. The actual rules around that vary from state to state. Some states say that if the person looks over 40, you don't have to check their ID or something like that, and that's usually gets me off the hook. But to be safe, generally places have a policy that requires you to check the ID. Sellers, bear some risk and liability around selling, age-restricted items. If they can get in trouble with the police, they can get in trouble with their, state alcohol board if there's evidence that they haven't been checking the IDs of their customers. And so a feature that helps sellers be confident that that their point of sale system can capture the fact that they've been vetting their customers is very helpful. As stores and grow and their number of employees grow, their compliance risk grows as well. And Square has been trying to push into bigger markets and do bigger venues. Square is the point of sale system at SoFi Stadium here in Los Angeles, which does in a given night millions of dollars of transactions of beer, and other age-restricted items. So any technology that can help streamline that process and make sure that the vendor is doing their legally required due diligence can help them a lot. So supporting features like privacy preserving age verification can help sellers, and it can increase the satisfaction with the Square product, and by doing a lot of things that they need to do anyway.
Awesome. Yeah. So these are some use cases from Square merchants that the Square retail team had talked to, mostly for the feature they launched earlier this year, which is a standard age verification feature that does traditional scanning of the barcode on your driver's licenses or any other state-issued ID. And a lot of the research done here is applicable to this more privacy-preserving solution. So a lot of the stores and merchants the team spoke to were worried about the things that Will just said, complying with regulations, reducing their risk, making sure they're not enabling fraudulent transactions, making sure that they stay compliant. So having all this data really affirms that this solution is not just a benefit for the individuals that are doing a purchase, but also for the merchants that Square is selling products to make sure that their experience in running their stores is more seamless. So MDLs can help broadly reduce fraud and risk, preserve the privacy of individuals, and also grow transaction volume. Preserving privacy is the one I care about the most, selfishly, because I think it's a little strange that we live in this world where we need to show essentially strangers our very personal information, like our height, weight, and address, if we want to buy an age-restricted product. And using this new technology, we don't have to do that, and we get the same high-level assurances that would be present with the previous flow, but in a better manner. The True Age program, like Will was saying, does allow you to reduce fraud and risk across merchants if there are state limits on things like certain products, such as vapes or other things that states don't want you to buy many items of within a given month, or even go between merchants and buy them at a high volume. This program could help introduce limits. And
True Age is I'll mention a little bit about it. It's a product that's created by the Professional Association for American Convenience Stores, right? Because there's a lot of laws and a lot of jurisdictions, like Gabe was saying, that restrict how many vape pods an individual can buy, or how much cold medicine you can buy, because they get worried people are going to make that into meth. And so that the True Age is a way of creating this system where you can make sure that people are the age that they need to be, but they're not going from store to store to store and buying huge quantities of cold medicine that they're then cooking into meth. It has a way of like tracking that a particular user is only buying so much without revealing their identity information. If you go over your quota that's associated with your ID, it just doesn't let the transaction go through. It doesn't alert the cops or anything like that. It just puts a threshold on the quantity that you can buy. But the main use case is just to check ages in a way that doesn't require people to reveal any more information.
Yeah, exactly. Another thing to note is that MDLs are kind of a broader topic. They're being rolled out across the US and outside the US as well. True Age is kind of a derived proof from a driver's license. It's not quite an MDL, but it does open the door to broader MDL adoption at Square and throughout the rest of Block's businesses. So we view it as the same bucket of digital state issued identity, but there's room for more in the future, and we can talk about that after we show off some cool demos. So to that, so the first flow we showed off is on a Square register. We have demos both for iOS and Android-based Square products. Let me know if you can hear the audio.
A common Square retail seller countertop setup includes a Square register with a connected barcode scanner. A seller can add items to cart by selecting them on the screen or scanning the item's barcode. Now we will add some alcohol to cart, which is age restricted to buyers over the age of 21. The seller is prompted to verify the customer's age. Scanning a valid driver's license adds the item to cart. The standard driver's license encodes data in the PDF 417 barcode. These can be easily generated online and faked. Now we'll demonstrate this with a mobile driver's license. As we can see, we successfully verified the mobile driver's license and that the buyer meets the age requirement. Here, we can see that we got a response validating that the buyer is over 21. If additional age-restricted items are added to the same cart, the seller will not be prompted to verify age again. If I complete the sale or clear the cart, it resets the verification and will prompt the seller to check the new buyer's ID. The point of sale will also display an error and not add the item to cart if the ID cannot be verified. Here's what happens when the seller scans a code that is not from a trusted issuer. This is what makes these IDs difficult to fake. The point of sale will also return an error if the MDL is verifiable but expired.
All right, so that was using the Square register that you've all probably seen in many merchants. And next we'll show off the Square iOS app for retail. So this is an even more accessible option. You don't have to buy any special hardware. You can just use your existing phone and complete the same type of flow.
This functionality is also offered in our Square for Retail iOS app, which is often used by smaller merchants or those who sell on the go. A mobile device would also be more appropriate when applying this to a bar or restaurant use case. Here, the device camera is used to scan the MDL.
All right, so that's it.
This functionality is also...
So that is the presentation we gave. I would like to add that we're exploring how we can roll this out to production and also expand the usage beyond California. There's some other interesting digital identity crossovers into the Square product that we're exploring, but are too early to talk about yet. But would love to hear your thoughts and take any questions. But I want to make sure, Will, do you have anything else to add before we go to that?
No, let's just address any questions that people have.
All right.
Yeah, so there are definitely a couple. Great presentation, and I also just want to say before we start answering them, I have always found it equally strange that you have to tell, like, you have to show your ID that reveals way too much about you to a complete stranger. Makes sense that you need to verify your age, but wanting everything else to be private is important. But let's see. So some initial comments. So Austin mentioned it's good not just for brick and mortar merchants, but online businesses as well. Am I also coming through okay? My
Yeah,
internet was like jumping from.
Yeah, it's coming through okay. Yeah, I mean, like that's the future of these credentials, and that's really the reason that TBD has invested heavily in them, is that we can build these credentials that can be exchanged over a financial messaging protocol to establish trust and ensure that financial institutions are complying with their obligations. The quality of those credentials really depends on the issuers of these kind of foundational identity documents that we all work with, like your driver's license. The United States is a little bit peculiar globally in that there is no national ID. So our driver's licenses are basically our de facto, sort of government issued identity document. And you can building credentials off of those, allows you to prove all these things, like how old you are, that you're the person that you say you are. But that's going to be most useful when people can use that credential remotely, when you can use it online. So we're showing here an in-person use case for a mobile driver's license and a derived credential from that driver's license in the California DMV app. And so far, there aren't a lot of uses for state digital driver's licenses for kind of remote presentation or for online use, partly because most of the DMVs have coordinated on using the ISO MDL format, which only just was it 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, released their specification for the remote presentation of an MDL, and it's not our preferred format because the ISO MDL standard is only kind of quasi open. Membership in the ISO working groups is pretty restricted. You have to buy the standard from ISO, which makes it difficult for independent developers to really build on it easily. So we prefer that DMVs use verifiable credentials. California has done that, which is something that we had something to do with. We tried to push them early on to adopt open standards, and we're hoping that other states follow their lead. But the American Association of Motor Vehicle Administrators is the main body that kind of sets standards for DMVs, and they're kind of all in on MDLs. So we kind of have to work on both of those standards at once. Using verifiable credentials is a lot easier for the online use cases because it already supports that in a way that's easier than the MDL standard. Did you have anything to add to that, Gabe?
Yeah, no, I agree with all that. there's a slightly related question about if we're still committed to the Web5 project, and I think your answer highlights that we are. That's the main reason we've engaged with the California DMV, because they're using the technology that we work on and care about. They're one of the only states, if not the only state, using DIDs and verifiable credentials. So we still believe in that technology. We still want to see it adopted, and yes, we're working to put it into our products across the VUs.
Great. Yeah, and as Angie mentioned, as like an additional to the original comment, like that's where it can really shine with online businesses. And yeah, because taking a picture of your driver's license and uploading that, like that just feels so ancient at this point. Um, Another comment from Austin, and maybe a point of clarification as well. He mentioned, I love the privacy preserving features of an age only verification, but nervous about merchants or government's ability to track purchases across stores.
Yeah, you want to say more about how TrueAge works? Because I might have caused a little confusion there. Like, because it doesn't track anything. So like, every time. So I've got my my California mobile wallet, and it's I can do share my prove my age with TrueAge, and it generates this QR code. I don't probably can't see it, but it's like generating a new code every time. And it's a token that's associated with your MDL, and that is. So if I buy something that's age restricted, that the law requires to be tracked by like convenience stores or any of these stores, then basically what it's doing at first it's checking the credential in the TrueAge database to see that you're over 21 or not. That's like, that information is coming from your MDL. And then if it is one of these items that you're legally required to, that has a threshold of how much you can buy, their database is just recording that this this identity has like bot 1 or bot 2 or bot 3, and when you hit the threshold, it just shuts off the approval for the purchase. But like, no, the vendor can't see anything about where you've purchased things before. It doesn't know anything about your history. The state doesn't have access to that information unless there's an investigation and then they like subpoena information from TrueAge. I'm pretty sure that's the way it works. Is that basically right, Gabe?
Yeah, no, it's exactly right. I'm putting a link in the chat here that links to the TrueAge site, but it's all your information is tokenized. They don't share your personal information across merchants. It's kind of like an obfuscated way to check whether you've reached a limit or not, and that's all the merchant will see.
Yeah,
and like
and
said, the government. Yeah,
I don't really love some of these regulations, but like merchants do have to comply with them if they're selling the right kind of items in states that require this. So there has to be a system to deal with that where it's legally required. And also we use the TrueAge token in our demo because one, it's available in the California DMV wallet, and that has these nice privacy preserving features, right? Like it allows for this pretty direct way of just giving a thumbs up, thumbs down to the merchant without sharing any information at all from their MDL to the merchant. And like when a merchant goes through one of these checks, their system will be able to log that it checked the TrueAge, QR code, brought back, went to the TrueAge servers, checked the token. So they have a provable way of showing that they check people's ages without capturing any information at all about the customer. And none of that data, that doesn't even need to hit the state, or so the state won't know about it. It's just there in the system that's maintained by the Convenience Store Association.
Awesome. Yeah. And from what I remember as well, and you mentioned already, is TrueAge doesn't actually store or share any of these personal details in general. Um, it's just like, and I think so that way, like the purchases that you're making aren't tied to your name, which I feel is like was the main concern to that question. Let me scroll up. There's quite a
And,
few.
and that is a real like ongoing concern with the way
Yeah.
states implement mobile driver's licenses. So like there are a lot of policy questions around the way these get implemented, because there are good ways to design a mobile driver's license the where the identity of the person with the ID, that you can go and check that it's been signed by the state's key, in a way that makes all the verification very secure, without letting the state know. But a lot of states have implemented things in a way that does give the state insight into where it is that people are presenting their MDLs. That's something that I think is not ideal, because that gives people like very reasonable concerns about privacy, and that those concerns really slow down the adoption of the technology. Like, people aren't going to want to use something if they know that the state's going to track them. Lots of states have rules that now require age verification if you're a teen and want to open a social media account, or if you want to access an adult website, you need to prove that you're a certain age. People aren't going to use their state issued ID for those kinds of purposes. Do I want the state to know that I'm a frequent visitor of OnlyFans or something like that? Like people don't want, right? Like, so if you want to implement the technology in a way that actually is consistent with adoption, you have to build in privacy and assurance to people that they can use it like their physical driver's license. You go into the adult bookstore and show your ID, like that. The fact that you showed your ID never goes back to the state in any way, right? Like, and you need a system that that is analogous to that, where when I show my digital ID to somebody, they can go and check to make sure that it's authentic, but the state doesn't capture the fact that it's been checked.
Yeah, very good note. Very important because you definitely don't want to feel like when you, because my concern in thinking about the technology is exactly as you described. Like, I don't want to go. Let's just say I'm getting like alcohol for a party or something like that. I don't want the state to know that this is what I got, or the store to retain that information other than you know, uh, like similar to in person where you can just walk away. Another use case that somebody mentioned anonymously might be leasing an apartment, which is pretty cool. I thought about that too. Any comments on that?
I mean, any use case, we use our driver's licenses constantly to prove our identity, right? Like, it is our primary identity document. And like, you start a new job and you have to come in and they like photocopy your driver's license and your social security card, right? Like, all of that stuff can be done in a better way using digital credentials, where you could, if your landlord has a system that supports it, and a lot of a high percentage of rental properties are run by these giant rental companies that have a lot of infrastructure. They could easily build this into the way the rental application works, like that you could share your driver's license, and make that like a lot easier for people. And but the same with like you just applying for credit, or a use case that I like is kind of gig work onboarding, right? Where if you want to be a DoorDash driver, or you want to be a Lyft or Uber driver, they do a pretty thorough check on you that involves like capturing your identity data. You have to upload your driver's license. Like, a great use for kind of a derived verifiable credential is you go through this process once with DoorDash. They've vetted you show that you are the person that you say you are. You have a license to drive in the state that you're driving in. You have the insurance that you're required to have. You don't have a criminal record, right? Like all of those things. If that can be embodied in a credential that you could reuse, across platforms, so that when you want to be an Uber driver now, and in addition to a DoorDash driver, you don't have to go through this incredibly onerous process again and again and again. That, like, I think that's, you get a lot of efficiencies as this kind of technology scales up and people become comfortable with building credentials off of these primary identity documents.
Great. Yeah. Just being able to have that checklist done for the information that's required to lease an apartment, for example, versus like having to give it over and over again would really be way more efficient. I would love that right now, please. Let's see. This question was answered earlier, that the merchant doesn't have anything to track. In case, I'm just highlighting it in case you wanted to add in anything, but I feel like we explained it pretty well.
Yeah, I think we've covered that.
Yep.
Okay. Let's see. This is a comment related to what we also described, which is, I'm happy to hear that you're targeting production experiences in the Square ecosystem. Until people can play with this in the real world, it won't click for many people. And I agree. Until some people are actually using something, the concept of something might be hard for them to understand until that point. I
Yeah.
myself can be that way. So
This is absolutely why the DMV was sponsored a hackathon, right? Like, they really want people to adopt, digital driver's licenses. Like they've made a big investment in building a wallet, they're building infrastructure for issuing these credentials, making it compatible with the Google Wallet and the Apple Wallet. And like, but what's the point of it if nobody accepts it, right? Like you can have it in your phone, but what's the point of having it in your phone if there's nothing you can use it for, right? Like, and that's what they're trying to, encourage is, they want businesses to, present use cases that make these actually practical and useful for people. And it does click once you see it. So like the kind of solution that we presented is, I think, a kind of interim solution based on where the technology is right now with the way that the California DMV has implemented their wallet. But I think the future is, like you can, in California and a lot of states, you can now, hold your driver's license just like in your Apple Wallet, which has access to the NFC chip. And the experience sooner or later is going to be, you're going to tap like on the terminal, like the picture from your driver's license that the state has pops up so that they can like look at you and check that you're the same person. And that technology can just do selective disclosure in a way that it's just asking you, do you want to share your age information with the merchant? You can permission that, yes. They get the thumbs up on their terminal, and that's it, right? Like, and like somebody at the hackathon had a version of that, and it's so slick, it's so easy. And like when you see it in action, you're just like, this is really an improvement. Like the scanning a QR code thing is still a bit clunky, right? Like people who have like a terminal still have to have a separate scanner, one of those old laser gun things that beep.
yeah.
And just having an integrated package like Square terminals and lots of point of sale terminals can, are already set up to do tap to pay using the same technology. You can exchange the information that's on an MDL in a selective, privacy preserving way. There's still a lot of questions about how to manage that data, whether merchants want to have like a picture of the person pop up on their screen, things like that to work through. But there's like where things are today, there's already the potential for a really low friction identity and age verification experience at retailers.
Yeah, something else I want to add on is that I could see us replacing one clunky interaction with another, and if we're not careful, like today, you have to potentially take out your wallet, show an ID, then tap to pay on your phone. It's like a lot of things in your hand. Like using a single device could be better, hopefully. But if it's across different apps, or if it's difficult, or you have to Face ID or tap twice, there could still be significant friction in proving your age at the time of checkout. So I think that we have a good opportunity to make this UX better. Like Will was saying, a lot of Square terminals or all Square terminals have Pay with Cash App, and Cash App could be a place that does everything in one tap. So you don't have to go through that clunky flow. That's something we're interested in looking into as well.
That makes sense, and that's a really good note to make because what's the point of new technology if it's not going to make the experience overall better and seamless, right?
Mhm.
Coming from Rizal, I might have missed it, but is this just a prototype or is it ready for companies to adopt?
So my understanding is it is just a prototype. It's in the production code line, but feature flagged off. There's definitely some more work we need to do to make it production ready, but we're actively working with the Square team to do that.
Awesome. Another comment from Austin. I had no idea you had to pay to use ISO standards. That seems so backwards. That does
I
seem.
agree. Standards should
I
be
did
open.
not know that either.
You do. And then it's not cheap. Like, do you know how much it is, Gabe?
I want to say in the hundreds. However, yeah, that's not the only problem.
You have to
Unlike,
buy a license for each person who looks at it.
yeah, that's right.
Oh, wow.
And you can't just join the ISO as a company or even as an individual. They're kind of this member state delegation. I don't know. It's a strange format. It's not clear how I would participate or anyone would, unless you already have the right connections. Which,
Yeah.
yeah,
There is a process that you can do to like join an ISO working group, but it's not very transparent, and it favors companies with a lot of resources who have a vested interest in keeping the credential or keeping the standard in a format that benefits them specifically. So this is actually a real going issue in the digital identity space because in the United States the MDL standard is the dominant one for digital driver's licenses, and the opacity of the process by which the standard gets kind of finalized, and the inability of like every stakeholder to participate in that like creates a lot of worries around privacy, whether it's being built to protect the rights of the people who are going to use it, or if it's being built to advantage companies or to satisfy demands of states who want to spy on people, right? Like, so there's like one of the benefits of an open process for settling on standards is that everybody who has a stake in the way it turns out has a chance to show up at the table, and their concerns can be aired. Everybody has a chance to like look at see the process happening and can try to influence it in a way that protects the interests of the people in their interest group. And so it's a long there's as far as we can tell, there's nothing wrong specifically with the MDL standard for the most part, and it's it can be integrated. You can basically use it to create a verifiable credential that has the same information on it, but like there's a lot of utility in having governments issue the primary credential in an open interoperable format that that everybody can use and that everybody can weigh in on. And and as things go into production and problems arise, right, like, and you need to amend the standards, right, like, we want people to be free to put give their input into that process rather than having it go back to a slightly shadowy committee whose deliberations aren't open.
Awesome. Yeah, and I wanted to highlight just this comment from Rizal from Austin's earlier question about that we already answered, but just for people that join midstream, with how committed we are to the Web 5 project. So we absolutely are super committed, especially like on Web 5, like we're focused on DIDs, the decentralized web, especially. And Daniel on our team also has his own live streams where he shows the progress as we have it focused on the D web. So um, totally appreciate the concerns, but happy to have you ask these questions as well.
I mean, some of it is that a lot of like the whole kind of Web 5 thing is a pretty long-term ecosystem play where you need all of these elements to fall into place for that whole kind of structure to fit together, right? Like and so like DWNs really come into their own once it becomes really typical for people to have DIDs that their credentials are connected to. But like right now we're at a point in the kind of adoption curve where we're just getting kind of started with actual real world adoption of like DIDs and VCs. But like we anticipate as that gets like bigger and bigger, then the utility of the whole ecosystem starts to click into place. And we're still invested in making sure that all of those pieces are there so that when adoption hits these tipping points, that we have like the full suite of tools to like enable all of the superpowers that like DIDs and VCs have, like because like things like DWNs really really supercharge that once it really gets going.
Yeah. This is a very interesting one and something I've thought about too. Douglas mentioned the homeless population will likely lose their government issued IDs. I would love to explore a digital option to enable any service provider to verify them, especially when providing social services, because I know from firsthand experience in volunteering locally, especially during the Christmas holidays, uh, that's a problem that you run into quite often where people just, when you're worried about having a roof over your head, you may not know where your government issue ID is, or you may not have the resources to renew it, maybe. Even if, like, something that was shown in the demo earlier, showing that, you know, your age is like this is your identity, and I understand that your license may have expired some odd years ago. Maybe there could be something there.
Yeah, that's a great point. And like one thing that I try to emphasize when I talk to governments about digital IDs is that like the traditional physical paper and plastic identity card and the digital version that lives on your phone or on the web, like these are complementary, right? Like they don't really replace each other, right? Some people can't afford phones, right? Like some people don't have them, they need the cards, right? Like and but like Douglas is saying, like people also lose the cards. In here in California, where there has been like a real crisis with just the number of unhoused people and some pretty like brutal behavior by local governments and like sweeping out homeless encampments, right? Like people lose their wallets, they lose their medications, and the thing that they're most likely to just like not lose and to have on their person is their phone, right? Like so your camp gets swept and everything you own gets thrown away, and the only thing you have left is your smartphone that you kept in your pocket. And like and how are you supposed to access services when you don't have your official ID anymore, right? Like it becomes very, very difficult. Like somebody in difficult circumstances has their the difficulty like amplified by the local government throwing all their stuff away. And so like I think there's that it's a really good point that having digital versions of these credentials kind of gives people a backup that can be essential. And allows them to access services even if they kind of lose their physical possessions. I mean, people's houses burn down. Like we just saw and there's huge floods in North Carolina. People, like everything they own got just swept away, like including the little box that you keep all your passports and birth certificates and all that sort of like fundamental identity information in, right? Like if you lose that, it's really useful to have a, like a digital version that is backed up, like that you can access. And so like but I really do see these things as working together, because sometimes you don't have internet, sometimes your phone breaks, right? And you need to be able to show. So like I think, like I don't think digital credentials are ever going to replace physical credentials. I think we need them both because they both have, they're two different good technologies that have different uses.
Yeah, I just to add on, this past week there were some fires in the region near where I live, and the group maybe less than a mile from me had to evacuate, and I was getting ready to evacuate as well. Thankfully, nothing happened, and the firefighters put it out in time. But I took all the sensitive documents I have in my home, and it's a frightening thought to think that so much of my life depends on a certain few pieces of paper. That seems very fragile and tenuous. So I agree, physical documents won't go away, but if I could have digital backups in case of disaster, that would be a lot better.
Yeah,
Even if it's
peace of mind. Yeah.
Yeah, even if it's just like a way to even it's very hard to get those physical documents back and verify your identity to do so without having physical documents too, going through and replacing like your driver's license, I know is a bit easier than, let's just say, like the physical like social security cards as well. Like the concept that like I definitely agree with both of you. Like both are equally important, and I think it's super important to be able to provide that identity verification and the documents like when you really need them, because that is definitely scary.
I'll mention from like a policy perspective, one of the things that would really help here isn't so much technological. It's just the way government services are delivered. So offering sort of easier access to IDV services so that people can get identity credentials would be really useful. So, for example, there was a bill that was proposed, a year or so back by, a science fellow in Senator Bill Cassidy's office that would empower local postal services to do identity verification, you know, like everywhere, like because everybody's close to a post office. Post offices already do like this IDV work specifically for like passports. But like, this kind of like legislation would allow them to run people through the IDV process in a way that allows them to issue a credential that a company like Block could use to onboard somebody onto a financial service. It would be a real government issued credential that isn't necessarily a driver's license. Like you like, it's kind of weird that the thing that says you're allowed to drive a box around on public roads is your main identity document. Like there can be lots of good high quality government identity documents, and there are at the federal level, but at the state level people are pretty restricted to this one option. And so if the government would support an IDV process that could be leveraged by the private sector to offer people kind of identity proofs, that would give people a lot of access to easier access to a lot of services, and in a way to kind of back up and prove their identities by having kind of multiple points of proof about who you are.
Yeah. This is a funny comment from Austin. Quick screenshot of Will's MDL. Gonna go buy a boatload of Dayquil.
Well, that's the thing with the TrueH credentials. You'll be able to use that specific QR code once, and then it regenerates it. It trashes it and makes it again the next time you try to use it. So you can buy one thing a DayQuil with.
And they're time bound, so you better hurry.
Oh yeah,
I
think you have 15 minutes. So if I think it's already gone. I think your window is closed.
That's so funny, but it is a real like concern, but it's good to know. Let's see.
But yeah, as a good piece of OPSEC, don't show your identity QR codes over here.
Yeah, that's a good point to make. A good, safety net, you know, don't show your private credential, don't show your QR code. Let's see. There's quite a bit of comments, so I'm going through. Lots of fun discussion happening today. Um, let's see. Oh, and this is like an add-on from Douglas initially, talking about, you know, looking into this within our community. Would love to pilot and tie payments into this as well, so that transient population continue to receive the services they need without physical cards. That would be awesome. I would really love to see that.
What was,
Yeah.
Gabe, what was the name of the organization that the DMV recognized for doing the app for migrant farm workers?
I don't remember.
So at the hackathon, there were several awards. By the way, the DMV gave us the award for the best security and privacy implementation. One of the award winners was this group who is creating an app that leveraged the state MDL to specifically to give like agricultural workers access to public services that they'd be eligible for. And the state was very excited about that. And it's a great use case. Like part of the problem there, like this is why I was emphasizing how important just making just the basic identity verification, like the in-person identity verification process more accessible, is that like, physical card versus digital card doesn't, like the main thing is like both of those things need to be rooted in an IDV process where somebody verifies that you are the person that you say you are. And so the real bottleneck is access to that a lot of times. So if you have like, undocumented workers, I mean, like the literally undocumented part of it is, a problem because, they can't get, it can be very difficult to get other identity documents, like you were saying, Tanya, like if you don't have them already, right? Like
Yeah.
you have a bootstrapping problem. And so you need kind of other means of doing that. Like, and there's these really interesting, I'm just kind of riffing now. I'm so sorry if I'm digressing, but this is a real problem with like refugee populations. And the UN refugee program has a process by which they kind of investigate the identities of refugees who've lost everything so that the UN can give them a credential that says that they are who they are. And there's a special like passport that you can get as a refugee issued by the United Nations. But like that identity verification process is really difficult when people come to you and they're like, I've been displaced. Like my entire village was bombed to smithereens. I'm running for my life. I don't have anything. But like I still need to prove my identity. Like I'm from, like Syria. Like I like had to flee. Like I need to prove. And so like that's just like not really a problem that technology solves. It can make it easier. Because just that basic trust that is like built by some trusted official authority saying that you are Tanya, you are Gabe, like we need that for better or worse. And so like making those services more accessible is very important. And a lot of times when you have undocumented or displaced populations, the best way you can do that is by having groups of people vouch for each other. And so having ways of formalizing that, like, yeah, like this guy is from my village. I've known him since I was 3. And then you've got 3 people who say that the person who said that is somebody that they know, right? The bigger you can kind of build out a little social network around them, the more confidence you can have that their identity is what they say it is. And that's partly what the UN does in doing that identity verification for displaced people. But it's just a really hard problem to solve. Like as I've been into this space, I like thought a lot about that, and trying to think of ways that technology can help. But it's like not so much just like identifying a person in the social world is not really a technological problem. It's a social and political problem.
Yeah. And you weren't roofing at all. It's important to discuss these things. That's why people are tuning in as well. And I'm really passionate about that too. Uh, and to add to this, Austin mentioned honest question. Are you assuming that the same people that don't have a physical card have a mobile device, or are you imagining they present digital credentials in a different way? We kind of mentioned this already in greater detail. I don't think there's an assumption that, let's just say, somebody loses their home, that they are guaranteed to have their phone, but it's understanding, or it's thinking about the fact that, you know, let's just say like a hurricane comes through and you have to evacuate, one of the first things you're told to bring with you is your phone. When somebody loses their home and they are living on the streets, it's possible that they may have their phone, or if something like this is accessible to people, um, they can use somebody else's device at, let's just say, uh, like um, the DMV, for example, where they can find alternate ways, or they can at least verify that digitally. Um, I think that's the idea here, because there was like one situation uh, also occurring during the holidays where I helped somebody out with like getting access to some of their money so that they could pay for something, and it was theirs, but they don't have a phone, So, yeah. Anything you wanted to add to that? I feel like we talked about it, but we only have, oh, I just realized we only have like a minute.
No, you got it. You nailed it. Yeah.
um, let's see. Any last questions that we can answer? There's great.
Oh, like Lucy,
I
again,
see.
who was one of the organizers of the DMV hackathon, was the wallet for agriculture. Entidad was the name of the company. So I wanted to give them a shout out for working on using these credentials to enhance access to services for not rich people with iPhones who are trying to use their credential to get through the security line, but for like workers on the front lines who may not have access to a lot of this stuff. I think working on use cases for kind of less privileged populations is what's going to really make this seem worthwhile.
Yeah. And all right. Well, thank you everybody for joining. I want to highlight this link from Gabe. Um, Yeah, so this should be about the hackathon. I'll be sure to post a link in this uh, video as well. So after this live stream is over, you'll be able to rewatch any part of this video and click any links that we shared throughout the stream in the description to the video on our YouTube channel. So yeah, all right. Well, thank you both so much for an amazing show and tell. It was really great to not only talk about the award won through the partnership with Square and TBD at the California DMV Hackathon. It was great to touch on these like really important like real life use cases too. So
Thank
yeah.
you.
Thanks, Tanya. It was fun to be here.
Yeah.
Thanks for all the good questions, everybody, too.
Yep. Thank you all for tuning in. All right, we'll catch y'all later. Bye.